2 years ago I made this video, and that video was about something I think is really important for game devs when considering how to communicate their stories. That a game's gameplay genre is more than just the game's challenge or reward loop. Instead, it's the primary delivery mechanism for the emotion that supports the game's narrative genre. In other words, narrative genre times gameplay genre equals emotion. Now I want to apply this argument to the game series Jedi because it also switched its gameplay genre from Metroidvania to open world and lost its emotion because of it. The biggest thing I want to criticize is the lack of enemy density. Open worlds just don't lend themselves to that kind of thing. The Metroidvania version of this franchise was packed full of enemies that felt like they had a purpose in this world. In Fallen Order, you were trained to know that if you went down a certain path you were unfamiliar with, there was a chance you could become overwhelmed by the troops that were here to guard the path, and you'd have to start all over because you can't just run past these enemies. But in an open world, you can just run past these enemies because you've been trained to know that there's empty space all over the map. Just get far away enough and you'll lose aggro. The narrative emotion of this transforms from tension and fear to boredom as you know the enemies are optional and there's no risk associated with simply running past them. And that lack of tension is a problem. You see, at its core, Star Wars has always had the narrative genre of Western mixed with the already similar genre of samurai film to give us the space Western. This genre has worked in the trilogy and it's a fine thing for Jedi Survivor to shoot for like it does. But Westerns and samurai films have always had tension and the stakes provided by the conflict. Lots of time is spent on showing that the protag is up against impossible odds. Fallen Order has that tension because players know that enemies mean their gameplay skills will be put to the test, and Jedi Survivor lacks this tension because enemies are optional. Which is all to say, the gameplay genre shift from Metroidvania to open world isn't a good one when the narrative genre is so clearly a Western. For a deeper dive in this discussion, check out my video on Elden Ring.